I can think of so many times when we're sitting in that opening meeting before the service or whatever, and the producers, giving all the instruction and prayer and this, and here's how this flows and all that kind of stuff. Then somebody will ask a question and look at me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just turn my head and look at the producer. And that
it's huge.
trains everybody that I'm not the one with the answers anymore. My job today is to connect with people and lead the congregation to worship God and sing. Welcome back to another episode of the Worship Catalyst podcast. We are taking a 2-episode dive into the role of producer or service coordinator in our churches. I got Cammie and Stephen with me again. How's it going, guys? In the last episode, we talked about the core functions of a producer and why they're so valuable to the team. In this episode, we're going to get more practical and discuss the transition to a producer from not having one, as well as how to train them, along with some tools to help you succeed week after week. So let's dive in. First of all, we're going to talk about who we're looking for. So Cammie, you have, identified and trained many producers through the years in various settings. And so like when you're out there going, all right, I'm going to find us a great producer, what are you looking for?
Yeah. I want someone, obviously, that's kind and encouraging to other people, that works well with other people.
Yeah.
But I also want them to be passionate about the gospel going out and going out strong. I want them to realize how important what happens for that hour or whatever it is on Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is, that's so strategic and so important.
Yeah.
Because you may not have another chance for those same people to walk in the room again.
So what I hear you saying is they can't be pushovers.
Correct.
Like they've got to be passionate enough about what they're doing. This is so important that I'm not just going to let somebody come in and change it.
I think so. And I also kind of, in my mind, I look through a crowd, people that I'm meeting, I want someone creative.
Yeah,
I want someone that can see big picture. And sometimes, that's the hairdresser in the group, or it's, someone that's got just some like artsy talent.
Right.
But also almost has that school teacher administrative ability.
Yeah.
To hey, here's what's going on, and people listen, so
That's right.
it's kind of an interesting.
So you've got kind and
person.
compassionate, and you've also got, kind and encouraging, and also compassionate and creative
And passionate.
and a little bit of a school and passionate.
Yeah. So all that wrapped into
So
one
would you say
person.
that Stephen would be a good producer? Does he have kind and compassion and passion?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It's in my eyes. The compassion's in my eyes. You see it. You see it right now.
I don't see it.
It's a mustache. It's a mustache.
It's in the mustache.
It's in the way. It's blocking my view.
The subgroup of this podcast is just going to be mustaches.
So as we're starting to go through our teams, we're like, yes, we're going to have a producer, we're going to have a service coordinator, whatever you want to call it, and we know kind of what the general roles are. So we're going to look for that person right off the bat. They need to be kind of encouraging, but also passionate. And what else would you add to that list?
I would say they need to understand what technology is helping us accomplish in those services.
Oh, okay.
But they don't have to have a complete working knowledge of how to run lights and sound and video. But, having some terms and understanding how things are supposed to hear and feel and look, I think all of that plays into it, but not necessarily the technical, every aspect of the technical world you have to have commanded by any means.
Right. That's exactly right.
We've seen some churches through the years that we've trained actually they choose tech people to be producers. It's never worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why is that, you think? Either one of y'all. I mean, we're gonna pile drive tech people right now.
Here we go. Prepare yourself.
Love
Just
tech people.
Cover your ears.
Gotta
tech
have
people.
them.
Yeah, I think a lot of, at least in my experience, I would say that a couple things about more tech leaders would be that they would maybe not be as extroverted as you might need. You might need someone that's really relational, because they're going to be kind of and commanding a lot of different audiences. Now, I would say that some tech guys can do that well, or gals can do that well, but I think probably the thing that might fall a little bit short is they might just be kind of one-dimensional, focused on the tech side, which I feel like stuff that we talk about producer really goes beyond that. That's one of the tools and a huge element of the services. But there's other things to be aware of other than just lights and sound, even though that's huge. But man, looking at the smallest of smallest details of the room, to the temperature of the room, to who's where they need to be at what time, other than like, man, just unmuting a channel, if that makes sense.
It's usually a different gifting, is what you're saying.
Yeah, correct.
I do think there's something with that introvert extrovert thing, because I think a lot of tech people tend to be, you know, like you've always said, there's a reason why the sound booth is locked and people can't get in. You know, like they kind of want to own their area. And so to incorporate other people in that sometimes is difficult.
Yes.
So they'd rather just do it themselves.
Right.
And they're great at what they do.
Right.
So a lot of times it's just hard to like bring in the other people that are involved.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but it is important that they understand what technology does,
Yeah.
is what you were saying. So like they need to, even if they don't now, if you were to pick a kind, encouraging, and passionate, and smart, and creative, and all this kind of stuff producer, but they don't know much about tech, it'd probably be good. What you're saying is to at least give them a overview of what a soundboard does,
Yeah.
and how do we get things from back here to on that screen, things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what else?
Organization.
Okay,
You know, like there's a lot of moving parts going on. And so, like we've talked about in the first episode, there's the redundancies of just checking the lyrics in the song, you know, and making the stage and the room feel this way, and making sure all the people know where they're going and when they're walking on stage, and the equipment's where, you know, all of those things. So you've got to stay organized with like, how's this going to work functionally? Like there's got to be a plan and a method so that when you get there for an actual service, you know, you can implement that vision that we talked about.
Oh man, that's so great. So we've chosen our person or our people, right? And from my experience, I just want to be honest. There's only been one time that a male in our story has been a good producer. They're always female. I don't know why that is. Maybe because it's hard for a guy to be kind and encouraging and passionate at the same time. Or maybe it's because they don't have that creative side or whatever. I don't know what it is, but
yeah.
I don't know.
any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I not at all super knowledgeable to speak on it other than coming from a man. I think sometimes we might be more compartmentalized in my mind, where females just are a little bit more gifted in thinking through a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's how I feel. That's probably why I wouldn't make the best producer. Where I find that, you know, all our producers are female on our team, and they all kind of share that ability to be able to kind of think about multiple things at one time. Not saying that some guys can't do that. I just know that I can't. So, so I'll speak for myself.
All right, so we found a leader or two or three, and we're like, all right, we're gonna have producers. This is gonna be awesome, and so we need to transition the team really from being the primary communicator and directive giver, being like the worship leader or somebody, to now it's going to be the producer. So, what are some best practices for making that transition? And it's really recent for you, Stephen. So, what's something that you would say?
Yeah, I think celebrating that role, so implementing it. We can talk more of the nitty gritty. I think of maybe how to do that. But I think as you put it into place, to be very honoring of the person in that role from the leadership perspective, because kind of, you know, that all the leadership axioms that talk about, you know, as the leader does, the team will do. And so I think if you celebrate it, if you talk about how big of a deal it is, and you give leadership to that person and continue to talk about it, write about it, text about it, email about it, then it's going to be honored and respected. And so I think, because it is a big deal. I mean, if we've said anything to this point, it's a big deal to have it on your team, and so you want to honor it well. And so I think that's a good first or maybe second step.
An example, I think, of that's like that I can remember is there have been times when we have made that transition to having a producer, like in a church plant or something, and I can just remember, like, really specifically, there was a service where something had to be changed in the middle of the thing, right? And I don't remember if it was like a video wasn't firing or something, and there had to be a quick change. So what I told, when it all happened and nobody knew there's a problem, And I said to our team after the service, "I mean, it's great service, whatever." And I said, "You know what? There's something that happened that nobody even knew about. This thing was about to blow up, and it was going to get weird. But because, whoever did their job, and because we have that role of producer now, that didn't happen. And it didn't distract people, and they were able to stay connected with what God was doing in the room. And so that's what you're saying, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, because I think just a really good thing that we can do always is when we see something that we're like, that's good. Like, that is a really good thing. Celebrate the heck out of it, because just shine light all you can on that stuff.
Cool. All right. What else? What's another good practice?
I would say just when you turn it over to that producer, it's going to take a few weeks to make that transition with the entire team, whether it's the band, the tech team, everybody, including pastor and worship leader. It just takes a while for the reality of that new person is in charge on Sundays to take effect. And so I would say make sure you are emailing the team ahead of time. Hey, we've got this new role. This is who's going to be there. This is their function. They're there to serve you. And I think just giving people that warning, giving them some time to get used to that idea with, whether it's sending emails or phone calls or just on Sunday mornings even going, okay, here's our new producer and this is what they're going to be doing today for us. I think that's really important. Just communicating that clearly.
Yeah, that's good. The other one that I would think of that I've tried to do as we've transitioned into having producers is keeping my mouth shut. And so for the worship leader, for the pastor, just keep your mouth shut. Literally, when somebody, I can think of so many times when we're sitting in that opening meeting before the service or whatever, and the producer's, giving all the instruction and prayer and this, and here's how this flows and all that kind of stuff. Then somebody will ask a question and look at me. And I just turn my head and look at the producer. And that
it's
trains
huge.
everybody that I'm not the one with the answers anymore. My job today is to connect with people and lead the congregation to worship God and sing. So
when the team sees the pastor and the worship leader go and ask the producer, how's this happening? What's happening here? Then it's an automatic. I mean, they're setting the tone for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And the lead. Yeah,
for sure.
So when we start to think about, okay, we have the producer, we're going to make this transition, but we really need to start training them, right? And I know for you, Cammie, you could probably be available. In fact, in the show notes, we'll go ahead and put your email address. If they have questions, they can reach out. But one of the things that I think has been the most helpful in your training that you've done is to talk through kind of the schedule that takes place in a week, not just on Sunday, but I mean the week schedule for a producer to get prepared. And I'm not sure how you guys are doing it, Stephen, in your church, but let me just ask you, and then you can chime in wherever you want about it. But when is it that the producer kind of starts to think about Sunday?
Yeah, I would say as soon as the worship leader has kind of that idea of the order of service.
So Saturday night at 10:30 p.m.
Sunday morning
Saturday
at 7 a.m.
at 10, preferably before Saturday. It could be Friday.
Sure.
And it could be a phone call. It could be an email.
Yeah.
Probably more so an email after you've been doing that role with the same person for a while and you kind of are used to the communication.
Yeah.
But I would say by Friday, get the producer, here's the order, talk through what you expect as the worship leader for the feel to be, what the transitions look like, talk through the people that are involved, especially if there's anybody unique that's not there on a Sunday morning typically, and just walk through right then and hand it off to the producer.
Yeah. That's good.
Usually by Friday, though, I would say.
Yeah, we've done a couple different iterations of it. I think as we early started kind of the process of having a producer, it was more like that, probably Friday. We've now looped in our producer a lot with communication even prior to our rehearsal in the midweek. And so what we do is the producer has access to the plan. We use Planning Center, has access to that plan early, maybe a week and a half before, if our planning's on point. And then
we're going to act like everything's perfect.
Yeah, right this now. Is like the planning's, we're synced up.
When we're in a bad situation, through
me and the pastor have had 7-8 meetings about the service in our free time. And and so by Monday, they're sending out a message about rehearsal that Wednesday.
Oh, so your producer's actually connecting with people about rehearsal.
Following up, so that they also know if somebody's declined it last minute, even before rehearsal.
Yeah.
So just to get that a little bit ahead. But then by Thursday, this happens after we rehearse and kind of work through the songs and kind of maybe change some details as a band. Maybe some tech notes that need to be talked about. Thursday, we give that plan fully to the producer, and then we say, like, you are the person now. It's yours. And so from Thursday to Sunday, they're running with it. They're following up with people and making sure we're good to go.
Yeah. And so any changes to that you've seen?
No, I think that's really good. I think it just depends on your situation, because some producers have kind of that oversight over especially the tech team and making sure like who's on the schedule for this week. Yeah. Some of them do speak into the band and who's instrumentalist and vocalist. That's just dependent on every church situation.
Yeah.
But they do need to know that if that is their responsibility, they need to know that and who those people are by midweek to Friday at the latest, so that they can start filling those positions, especially on the tech team.
So on a Saturday, if somebody bails because something happens in life, producer is the one that fixes that problem?
Yes.
At every level? Band, tech, all of it?
That's where I said
Sermon?
It depends on the...
I think it's got to start there, right?
Yeah.
So I think like that's the point of contact it starts with. I think it just kind of depends on where you are with your team and who's on your bench, right? Like who's who can step into those roles. I think where we are, we're kind of in the middle of that where somebody cancels on Saturday, the producer will know, and then if they can't fix that problem, or more so if it's in the tech, they can kind of adjust it pretty quickly. But if it's a band, they want to check with before they just,
because that musician may not fit with what you're trying.
Yeah,
to
right.
So
they'll bring
switch out keyboard players for every single set.
Yeah. Right. So they'll bring me in more to that, but I think giving them, just like we talked about, kind of all those reasons to kind of implement them with the team, is you kind of put them as the point of contact, because then they're more likely to, if they can fix it, get it adjusted without you even having to be a part of it.
So how does that that changes your Saturdays as a leader?
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's why it is kind of nice to have a rotating
Yeah,
different producers, so that every Saturday you're not just
like as a producer you're just like
trying to
walking around
crazy.
crazy.
Lost my weekend.
Yeah, right. But definitely changes the game for you as the leader on Saturday if you know that somebody's looped in that community. Even just knowing that somebody's going to help carry that with you, I think just means, because so many times we just feel like alone in making those decisions and having to fix issues, and so having somebody that's even just looped in on it that can help you carry a little bit of that, help send a text or call somebody. It's just helpful.
Yeah, so good. All right, so we get to Sunday finally. Okay, and so what does it look like? Producer Sunday morning. What are they doing?
Yeah, so Sunday morning, for years in our scenarios, the producer was expected to come with the flow, basically, of what was happening.
Printed off order.
Whether it's printed off or everybody gets emailed a copy that morning and they can have it on their phone or whatever. But something so that the producer can stand up, have a meeting with everybody that's involved in the service, and just walk through everything. Like, here's the transitions, here's the, do the tech cues right then. This instrumentalist plays here. We need, exit stage right here. Just walk through all the details that possibly could, help everybody do a better job.
Yes.
And lead that meeting.
Yeah.
But then also, just the normal things like we've talked about in the other, like checking the room out, making sure the seats are ready and everything's set up well.
Let's talk about that for just a minute. So you're talking about some things that are systematic, like every week.
Yes.
Walk in, do this, dominoes.
For sure.
And so I know one thing that you have given out to producers in training is checklists.
Yeah. Love the checklist.
Literally.
Even when you've done it like a million times,
yeah,
it's still great because you don't even have to think. You're like, okay, here's a list.
Is everything checked?
Let me just go through here systematically and go check. Because even when you've done it a million times, sometimes when you've done it a million times is when you forget the simple things.
Right.
So it's a great tool.
So what are some of those things that are on the weekly checklist? And every church is different,
Yeah,
you know.
Sure.
you
obviously,
guys may
but-
have different things.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of start at the beginning, like I just said, with room and setup and feel and temperature and lighting. Is there music, pre-music that needs to be
No,
played?
yeah.
Are there videos that are going to be in the service today? Let's go ahead and do some checks to make sure the sound's there on the videos, that they're queued up.
Yeah.
Lyrics and songs and like repeats, things like that, making sure things are spelled correctly. Talking to people that are involved in the service that day.
Yeah.
Do you know where you're coming in? Do you know what's
Where
right
you're-
before
where you're
you?
supposed
Where
to
are you going to
stand.
be sitting?
Yeah.
You know, nothing's worse as someone on stage and you know that there's someone that's supposed to be coming up to pray or whatever, and you're like, I have no idea where that person
not
is.
there.
They're like
they're
on the
not even
14th
there.
row.
Yeah, like no one told them,
slowly
and they're
walk
gonna
up.
have to walk up from the back. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Just
terrible.
little things like that that you know, hopefully you can catch ahead of time. But yeah, so the list is just, you know, and that list could look different for your
Right.
scenario.
Yeah, I think all of those things are very similar to us. I think they even help with some different things like, you know, setting up some of the streaming of the service in different rooms and making sure, especially if, like you said, if we have a pre-meeting and somebody involved in the service wasn't able to be in that meeting, which is, you know, if we have elder so-and-so who came at 10 when the meeting's at 9, but he's still leading the closing, that they're going to go find them and make sure that they know, even if that's while the service is going on.
Yeah.
They're going to go find them, hey, you good? Do you need anything? And make sure they know where to grab the microphone and all that. Even
Do you know my
the
favorite
middle of it.
role of producer out of all the roles on a Sunday morning checklist thing is to make sure Austin is where he's supposed to be. And so it's like, how many times have I been caught in a conversation I can't get out of?
Yeah.
And the producer comes by and says, I'm so sorry, I have to get Austin, you know,
Yeah.
over here because he's needed.
It allows
so
the
good.
producer to be the bad guy because you feel so bad when you're talking to someone and
Yeah.
they're like really sharing something like
Yeah.
important with you, but you
Yeah.
also have to go start
Yeah,
and
I'm sorry about your cancer.
yeah.
I got to go get on the stage.
Yeah.
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 Who is that girl that came and grabbed you? Gosh, she's the worst.
Yeah,
Well, and
she's
the-
passionate.
Yeah, but she's compassionate too.
But she's so kind
She's
and
so
encouraging.
nice.
But like that's another thing, like the countdown. Like a lot of churches have countdowns.
Yeah.
And the band and everybody else may be like in 12 different places across the room.
Right.
And all of a sudden, as the producer, you're like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah.
But hopefully, they're at least cognizant of, okay, it's getting closer.
Mm-hmm.
Here's so and so, you know, even if you do have to go be the bad guy
Yeah.
and pull people out of conversations,
Yeah,
at least you get to be the bad guy and you can free them up to go do their thing.
For sure. Well, the thing I would think as a worship leader, getting a producer and starting to go through all the things that we talked about, I would have them obviously watch these 2 episodes, you know, just to kind of get some ideas. But then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I would start with what we're talking about here, some of these things, but then really write out a timeline throughout the week. How are we going to communicate? How's this going to work best? And then a Sunday morning timeline. How's this going to work best?
Yeah.
And then a checklist. Here are all the things you're making sure you do. Is there anything else that I'm missing here that in terms of training a producer?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. So we'll put these things on, we'll put these things in the show notes, you know,
Yeah.
some links to a few like just starting point checklists and timelines,
Yeah.
and then you adjust it, or churches can adjust it as they need to. So,
For sure.
hey, it's been a good conversation. Thank you guys. Appreciate your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, man.
Your effort,
Grateful.
your, your expertise. And I hope this has been helpful for you guys in this podcast series and for your team. We believe that having this role in your church and having the right person filling it can unleash other people to function squarely in their gifts. So don't wait for another season to go by. Engage somebody today who can start being a producer in your church. And I promise you, like within 2 weeks, almost immediately, you'll be glad you did. So thanks for watching these 2 episodes or listening to these 2 episodes. Be sure to check out all the other resources at worshipcatalyst.com and follow us on social media at Worship Catalyst. I heard the other day somebody said my socials. So should I say that? Is that super cool? So follow us on our socials.
So cool.
Isn't it? It just automatically
Yeah.
makes it better.
I want to unfollow so I can follow again.
We should roll credits right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
We should just freeze frame. Or
So
something.
follow us on social media at Worship Catalyst. So we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.